They say machines don't lie. But the moment I opened that folder, I felt it. A silence too clean, too perfect. The kind of silence that only exists when somebody's hiding something. I was the first one in the office that morning. The hallway lights were still flickering awake, cold fluorescence humming above me like static nerves. The smell of burnt coffee lingered from the night shift, that metallic tang that clings to the air when dreams are turning sour. My badge beeped against the glass door, one short tone, one green flash, and for a second I saw my reflection. Tired eyes, braids loose at the crown, skin catching the ghost of that white-blue light. Another night of debugging, another morning of pretending everything's fine. I slid into my chair. The leather squeaked a little under my coat. My monitor woke up. Screens of numbers, data streams, code running smooth as silk. But then, the line I always looked for wasn't there. The script I wrote, my bias filter, the heart of the fairness model, gone. Just gone. I scrolled, searched, checked the logs. The cursor blinked like it was mocking me. My fingers went cold against the keys. It felt like someone had reached into my mind and deleted a piece of me. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Systems reset all the time. Then I saw the timestamp. 2:43 a.m. Sunday. No one was supposed to touch this code over the weekend. No one but me. A sound. Soft, mechanical, the aircon humming overhead. My heartbeat filled the space between the machines. I clicked deeper into the version history. Lines and lines of green replaced by gray. Author tag. Unknown chat admin override. That's when it hit me. They'd rewritten my algorithm. Not refined. Not adjusted. Rewritten. And in its place, a new parameter. Cultural Fit Index. Sevens. My throat tightened. I knew what that meant. I'd seen those words before. HR slides dressed up like diversity, smiling faces with no truth behind the teeth. I whispered, almost to myself. Sevens. Lord, not again. Sevens. The cursor kept blinking. I opened the dataset, test results from the last 24-hour cycle. 12,000 applications processed. 78% of Black candidates ranked as low fit. Sevens, 78. That number hit me harder than any slap. It wasn't just data. It was erasure, pixel by pixel. I could almost hear my mother's voice in the back of my mind. Sevens. Baby, you'll always have to be twice as good to get half the credit. Sevens. I'd been twice as good. Maybe more. And still, here I was, watching my work, my faith, stripped clean. The office was waking up now. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, laughter too loud, the click of heels against polished concrete. I minimized the window. I knew how this worked. You act calm, you sip your coffee, you keep your face neutral. You learn to hide the storm behind your smile. Someone passed behind me. Mark, my project lead. His cologne hit before his voice did. That sharp citrus and ego mix. Morning, Dr. Ellis, he said, breezy. Hope you got some rest. We had to make a few tweaks while you were out. Sevens. Tweaks. That word. It burned. He said it like he was adjusting a thermostat, not dismantling months of ethical engineering. I turned slightly, forced a smile. Yeah? What kind of tweaks? He didn't look up from his tablet. Just alignment stuff. You know, Business priorities. Business priorities. That was the corporate translation of "we changed your code to fit our bias." I wanted to scream, but instead, I nodded. Because that's what survival looked like in rooms like this: polite, precise silence. I watched him walk away, his reflection slicing across the glass walls, fragmenting into a dozen versions of authority. My pulse wouldn't slow down. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling just enough for me to notice. I opened the security console. If I was right, there'd be traces. Every lie leaves a fingerprint. And there it was, a hidden commit from an internal account I didn't recognize. System Optimization V3. 2. Sevens. I clicked it open. The code stared back at me, cold, clinical, wrong. Each line felt like betrayal written in syntax. Every if-then clause was another judgment call against someone who looked like me. The more I read, the heavier the air got. I couldn't breathe for a moment. I whispered again, barely sound. Sevens. They really did it. Sevens. The coffee on my desk had gone cold, bitter, untouched. The hum of the servers sounded like 1,000 quiet witnesses, all pretending not to see. I pulled out my flash drive, small, silver, scratched from years of use, slid it in, copied the original file from the archives, the last clean version before the rewrite. The screen flickered as the data transferred, percentage climbing slow. 5%. 19%. 32%. Each number like a heartbeat. If anyone walked in now, I'd be done. Footsteps again, closer this time. Voices, laughter, coffee cups clinking. I minimized everything, pretended to check email. A drop of sweat rolled down my temple, stung when it hit the corner of my mouth. The transfer hit 100%. Complete. I ejected the drive, slipped it into my pocket. The metal was warm against my fingers. That warmth felt like defiance. I looked up at the glass wall. The city reflected back. 7 towers of glass, the morning sun slicing gold across steel. People down there rushing, unaware that somewhere above them, someone just flipped a switch that decides who gets a job, who gets erased. I straightened my spine, took a slow breath. That's when I realized they hadn't just stolen my work. They'd stolen the story I was trying to write into the world. A story where fairness was possible. But I still had the truth. And the truth was data. And data never dies. Not if you know where to look. You built the lie, I whispered. But I built the evidence. Sevens. The hum of the servers answered me, like a pulse under the floor. I saved one final note in my personal log. Unauthorized modifications detected. Backup secured. Sevens. Then I closed the laptop, stood up, and looked around that perfect, polished office. All glass, all shine, all illusion. I smiled, small but certain. They erased my code. They forgot who wrote it. And they sure as hell underestimated what comes next. If they used my machine to erase us, I'll use their machine to expose them. Sevens. Would you walk away or fight back? Tell me in the comments. They called it a project alignment meeting. Sevens. What they really meant was, come watch somebody else present your soul as a slideshow. The conference room was all glass and chrome, sunlight cutting through the blinds like blades. That California light always looked too clean, too surgical, the kind of light that exposes fingerprints and guilt. The table was long enough to seat 12 egos comfortably. Polished oak, smooth as silence. The air carried that mix of sanitizer, burnt espresso, and stress. Laptops opened one by one. Clack, clack. Thud. The sound of digital hearts waking up. Mark, my boss, took the seat at the head, right under the company logo gleaming in brushed steel. He smiled the way people do when they already own the room. His cufflinks caught the light, tiny suns flashing arrogance. I sat 2 seats to his left, notebook open, pen steady. I always took notes. It made people underestimate me. They think the one writing is the one learning. But sometimes, the one writing is recording evidence. The projector hummed, a low electric breath. Slides flickered across the glass wall. Graphs, metrics, phrases I knew by heart. Every line, every variable, mine. But the name on the title page wasn't. Project Ethos, presented by Mark Hayes, Director of AI Innovation. The first slide came up. My model architecture, simplified, polished, stripped of its heart. He talked about efficiency, market value, scalability. He never once said fairness. Never once said equity. Never once said my name. We've optimized the selection pipeline, he said. Our algorithm now identifies candidates who fit the company culture seamlessly. Early data shows a 25% improvement in retention metrics. Evans. He paused for applause that didn't come. Someone cleared their throat. The intern poured water into crystal glasses. Tiny bubbles rose to the surface like witnesses trying to speak. I could feel the heat crawl up my neck. My heartbeat tapped against my ribs in quiet Morse. Don't react. I watched him move. The subtle lean forward when he lied, the way his fingers brushed the clicker too fast, his voice tightening on technical words he didn't understand. He looked confident, but his shoulders betrayed him. Tension lives in the shoulders. I wrote in my notebook, slow and deliberate. Sevens. We coded hope. They marketed control. Sevens. A small whisper slipped out before I could stop it, barely breath. Sevens. Keep your calm. Zaria. Sevens. Someone at the far end asked about bias mitigation. My cue. I looked up, ready to speak, but Mark raised a hand, cutting the air. We handled that internally, he said quickly. It's all proprietary now. Sevens. Proprietary. As if fairness were a trade secret. He clicked to the next slide, a photo of our team. My face in the back, slightly out of focus, like I was an afterthought even in the digital memory. He gestured toward it. Diversity has been a key strength in this development, he said. Laughter rippled, polite, rehearsed. Somebody whispered, "She's our diversity superstar," and the room chuckled like it was harmless. I smiled too, the kind of smile you learn from survival. It felt like glass cracking behind my teeth. Inside, my thoughts lined up like code compiling. Sevens, if, truth, shall mind buried. Sevens, then, dig. Sevens, else, wait. Sevens, I wasn't going to explode. Not yet. Revenge isn't fire, it's precision. The meeting rolled on. The hum of the HVAC mixed with the scratch of pens, the tap of keys. Someone's bracelet jingled every time they gestured. Each sound layered into a rhythm of corporate theater. Mark pointed at another chart, recruitment velocity climbing upward like a heartbeat. He said, "I" again. I watched his reflection in the glass wall behind him, his mouth moving. But in the reflection, it looked like he was confessing. Reflections never lie. My pen moved again. Every empire collapses in its own mirror. Then he said it, the line that almost broke me. This project shows how our AI understands real human potential, free of bias. Free of bias. The words hit me like cold water. The same bias he had coded into the system when he erased my filter. I bit the inside of my cheek until the metallic taste of blood reminded me, you're still here, still breathing. I glanced around the room. Faces glowing blue from laptop screens. One woman tapping her nail against her coffee lid, eyes half closed. A junior engineer scrolling Slack under the table. Nobody looking at me. And that's how it works. Silence is a system too. I let my gaze settle on Mark again. He was sweating under the collar now. The light had shifted, sun catching his forehead in an unforgiving stripe. Even liars glisten. He clicked to the final slide, company logo, tagline, applause cue. Any questions? He asked. My voice surprised even me. Calm, low, measured. Just one, I said. Every head turned. He blinked, trying to gauge if I was danger or decoration. Yes, Zaria? Sevens. I tilted my head slightly. In this model, the fairness metrics you mentioned, did you rerun them after the last optimization? Sevens. Silence. Somewhere, a chair creaked. Someone's pen stopped mid-stroke. He hesitated a fraction too long. Of course, he said, but the pitch rose at the end, the universal tone of a man bluffing. I smiled. Small. Good. I'd love to see the new report when it's ready. Sevens. My tone was honey dipped in steel. He nodded, relieved, moving on, thinking I'd surrendered. But I'd just drawn the first boundary line. Inside my head, a whisper. Sevens, patience. They don't know what you've saved. Sevens. The meeting dissolved into chatter, chairs scraping back, papers sliding into folders. The sound of performance ending. As people filed out, I stayed seated, gathering my notes slowly. Mark leaned over my shoulder, too close. Great teamwork today, he said. That cologne again, sharp, artificial confidence. I didn't look up. Teamwork implies everyone gets credit, I said softly. He laughed, but it came out thin. Then he was gone. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. The room went quiet, just the low hum of the projector cooling down. Dust floated in the light like tiny truths waiting to settle. I exhaled. My hand trembled once, then steadied. I looked at the slide still frozen on the screen. Our vision for a fair tomorrow. Fair. Tomorrow. I almost laughed. I shut down my laptop, the reflection of the city skyline bleeding across the glass wall. Each window out there was another office, another story of someone being silenced, someone waiting for their moment to strike back. I touched the flash drive in my pocket. Warm, still. A quiet pulse of proof. They think they won, I murmured. Let 'em think so. Thevumans, because hope isn't naive. Hope is strategy. And I was coding something new now, not an algorithm, but a reckoning. They turned my creation into a weapon, but they forgot who taught it to think. Hence, the office was half empty, the hum of the fluorescent lights steady as a heartbeat. That low, electric drone, the kind that makes silence feel alive. Most people had gone home, but I stayed behind, pretending to fix a minor bug. That's what I always told them. A bug. They never questioned it. Maybe because they thought I was harmless. Maybe because they needed to believe that I was. The air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink. The windows reflected a city wrapped in blue light, that kind of hour where everything feels like it's holding its breath. The monitors flickered in soft pulses, and in those brief glows, I could see my own reflection, steady, patient, unreadable. They erased my name from my own creation. But what they didn't know is that I don't forget. And I don't forgive quietly. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, not rushing, not trembling. Every motion had rhythm. Click. Scroll. Pause. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat on the screen. Each stroke of the key wasn't random. It was choreography. A dance of intent disguised as maintenance. I opened the audit trail. Then the metadata archive. Then a document that looked like nothing. Inside it, I buried something that looked like less than nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was truth, encrypted in plain sight. Truth always finds a way to speak, if you teach it how. I could feel the texture of the keyboard under my fingertips, smooth, faintly warm from hours of use. The hum of the server room seeped through the walls, like a secret breathing behind steel. Someone coughed in the far cubicle row. A chair squeaked. I froze. Didn't look up. Didn't move. I waited. 1. 2. 3 seconds. Then silence again. I exhaled slowly through my nose. Stay calm, Zaria. Stay invisible. It wasn't fear I felt. Not anymore. It was focus. There's a certain thrill in building something no one else can see. A kind of power that doesn't need to shout to exist. Every motion I made was deliberate. Every file I touched had a purpose. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was preparation. A seed doesn't scream when it's planted. It waits. It burrows into darkness until the right moment. Then it splits everything open. The screen's glow caught the silver ring on my finger, a gift from my grandmother, the one who told me, "Sevenths, if they won't see you, baby, make sure your work makes them look." Sevens. And that's what I was doing. Making them look. Eventually. The thrill wasn't in the sabotage. It was in the symmetry. They thought they'd erased me. But all they'd done was give me space to rewrite the narrative. I saved the file. Calm, silent, deliberate. The way a heartbeat resets after a scare. Then I copied it to a hidden directory. No secret folder names, no suspicious timestamps. Just folded neatly into the flow of corporate clutter, meeting notes, report drafts, project folders. Invisible inside the noise. I leaned back, stretching my shoulders, feeling the stiffness of the day settle into my spine. Outside, the streetlights glowed faint gold against the window's edge. A bus passed, headlights slicing through the reflection of my face. For a second, I saw two versions of myself, one tired, one awake. The tired one was who they thought I was. The awake one, she was just getting started. I whispered under my breath, almost a prayer, almost a promise. Sevens, you wanted to erase me. Let's see how that feels when the light hits you. Then I smiled. Not the kind of smile that forgives, the kind that knows something others don't. The office felt colder as I stood up. The scent of coffee had gone bitter. The hum of the lights sounded louder now, a little more nervous, like even they knew something was coming. I shut down my screen, let the glow fade to black, and for a brief moment, everything disappeared. My reflection, the evidence, the world outside. Only the heartbeat in my chest remained. Steady, certain. Counting down. Tomorrow, they'd walk in as if nothing happened. But by then, it would already be too late. Be honest. What would you do if it was you sitting in that room? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear you. Morning came slow, like the world was reluctant to wake. I arrived early, earlier than everyone, because silence is where I think best. The building smelled like new carpet and reheated ambition. The kind of air that hums with caffeine and quiet resentment. The lights overhead flickered to life in a soft sequence, one by one, until the whole floor glowed in pale white. The reflection of the city skyline stretched across the glass walls, cold and perfect. My workstation waited for me. Same mug, same sticky note, same polite erasure of what I'd built. But underneath it all, something had changed. Not the code. Not the data. Me. I could feel the current of it under my skin, that electric pulse of anticipation. They didn't know. Not yet. And that was the most dangerous part. People started filing in. Tired smiles, mumbled greetings, the rhythmic chaos of keyboards warming up. The smell of coffee filled the air, sharp, sweet, alive. The floor buzzed with the kind of chatter that sounds harmless until you listen close. "Morning, Zaria," one of the interns said. I nodded, smiled. "Morning." I watched him walk away, tapping on his phone, humming to himself. Harmless. He had no idea that history was about to bend a little today. Then came the footsteps I knew best, heavy, confident, slow. Gregory. My boss. His shoes always clicked like punctuation marks, each step declaring authority he never earned. He carried his laptop like a trophy and his smile like a brand. "Team meeting in 10. He called out, voice full of that false energy. Everyone nodded, obedient. I caught his reflection in the glass partition, his jaw tight, eyes scanning the floor like a man checking for cracks. He didn't know there was one right beneath him. I sipped my coffee, keeping my gaze on the monitor but my attention on everything else. I counted gestures, tracked glances, measured tone shifts, all data points. People reveal more through silence than they do with words. Across the room, Maya from HR leaned close to whisper something to another manager. I caught fragments. Greg's presentation, the demo, Zaria's dataset. Sevens. My name lingered there for half a beat longer than it should have. Then laughter. Quiet, polite, sharp. I smiled without meaning to. "Laugh now," I whispered into my cup. The system remembers everything. Sevens. The meeting room was glass, floor to ceiling. Transparency, they called it. I always thought it looked more like surveillance. We filed in, the scrape of chairs and shuffle of papers blending into a low symphony of nerves. Gregory stood at the head of the table, posture straight, rehearsed. He tapped his slides open, face lit by the screen's glow, blue and cold. He started speaking, that practiced tone of inspiration mixed with theft. Every sentence had my fingerprints on it. Every graph, every insight, every phrase he used to sound visionary was born from my hands. And every time he spoke one of my ideas, it felt like a spark catching dry leaves inside my chest. But I didn't flinch, didn't interrupt, didn't give him the satisfaction of reaction. I watched, waited. Every move, every lie, logged quietly in memory. The room applauded at the right cues. Maya smiled politely, taking notes that meant nothing. The intern nodded like a disciple, and Gregory basked in it, drinking validation like cheap champagne. I leaned back, crossing my arms, letting the motion look casual. Inside, my thoughts were sharp as glass. Go ahead. Build your speech, Greg. Every sentence is a fuse. Sevens. He clicked to the final slide, the company logo spinning over my stolen design. He exhaled, smiling wide. Teamwork, he said. Collaboration. Innovation. The irony almost made me laugh, but instead, I blinked slowly, memorizing the reflection of his face in the glass wall behind him, because in reflections, you see the truth stripped of performance. And behind that smile, I saw fear. He didn't even know why yet, but his body did. Instinct recognizes imbalance before reason does. When the meeting ended, everyone dispersed like they'd witnessed history. Maybe they had. They just didn't know whose. Gregory lingered. He turned to me, voice soft, casual. Zaria, great work with the data prep. Couldn't have done it without your foundation. Sevens. That word, foundation, landed like a paper cut. Barely painful, but bleeding nonetheless. I met his eyes. Of course, I said, my tone even unreadable. That's what I do best. I build things other people stand on. Sevens, he chuckled, missing the warning in my words entirely. Then he walked away, shoulders loose, confidence swelling again. I watched him go. The glass walls mirrored him from every angle, a man framed by his own illusion. It was almost poetic. At my desk, I reopened the project dashboard. The indicators were all green. Stable. Perfect. Exactly how they should be. I touched the corner of my monitor, a small, habitual gesture, like pressing a secret seal. 1 week of planning. 3 layers of encryption. 1 perfect alignment of data that would reveal everything at once. The real presentation wasn't today. It was coming. And it wouldn't need slides. As the office thinned out for lunch, I stayed seated, fingers resting lightly on the keyboard. The chatter faded. The scent of microwaved leftovers drifted faintly from the break room. My heartbeat was slow, steady, calculating. Patience, Zaria, I whispered. Let them tighten their own rope. Sevens. The reflection in my screen looked calm, professional, even kind. But beneath that calm, something fierce was taking shape, something that no algorithm could predict. They thought they owned the narrative. But data doesn't lie. And the truth? It was already written, waiting, humming quietly inside the machine, like a storm before it breaks. You won't believe what happens next. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. The day of the reveal began like any other day, on the surface. But surfaces lie. The office looked the same, smelled the same, sounded the same. But beneath that stillness, everything hummed differently. Like the building itself could sense what was coming. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a faint pulse, the kind that makes you wonder if they're alive. The air was cold, almost metallic, carrying the faint scent of last night's burnt coffee and disinfectant wipes. Someone was laughing near the break room. The sound cut through the silence like static, bright, meaningless, temporary. I sat at my desk, posture perfect, hands resting lightly on the keyboard. My reflection stared back at me from the monitor. Calm eyes, neutral lips, nothing to give me away. Inside, every nerve was awake. Every thought sharp. Every second measured. The evidence was ready. Perfectly aligned, impossibly simple. No chaos. No noise. Just truth, shaped into symmetry. I'd spent nights polishing it. Not out of revenge, but out of precision. Revenge burns too hot. It leaves ash. Precision cuts clean. It leaves clarity. Now, all I had to do was time it right. I watched the office fill up, people trickling in, one by one. Laughter. Greetings. Keys clacking. Phones buzzing. The rhythm of normalcy, perfectly rehearsed. I knew each sound by heart now. Across the room, Gregory was holding his coffee like a prop, smiling that same smile, the one that never reached his eyes. He was talking to the product manager about the next phase of his algorithm. The words, "my system," floated through the air, casual as breath. I didn't flinch, didn't blink. My calm wasn't fake, it was earned. He glanced my way once, offered that half-smile people give when they're certain they've already won. I smiled back, polite, patient. Inside, I whispered, "Sevens, keep smiling, Greg. You're about to meet the truth." Sevens. The morning dragged like honey, slow, heavy, deliberate. Meetings came and went. Emails pinged. Everyone moved through the day like characters reading lines they didn't write. Around noon, I stood and walked toward the window, the city gleaming below, the sky sharp with light. I could see my own reflection layered over the skyline. One face, two worlds. The one they saw, the one I was about to show them. The plan was simple. At exactly 3:47 p. The board review system would sync live data for the quarterly presentation. Gregory would stand in front of everyone, the board, HR, investors, and show them his results. Except, this time, the system wouldn't show what he expected. Every piece of data I'd buried would surface in that moment. Not manipulated, not edited. Just pure, unfiltered truth. Logs, timestamps, authorship trails, message threads. A perfect mirror. No one argues with mirrors. I checked my watch. 2:12 p.m. Sevens. Time was folding into itself now. Every minute felt like a held breath. I returned to my desk and opened the system dashboard. One last check, not for errors, but for poetry. Everything was aligned. Everything was still. I traced the edge of my coffee mug with my finger, feeling the smooth ceramic beneath my nail. The smallest sensations mattered today. They kept me grounded. Someone approached, Maya, from HR. She smiled softly. "Hey, Zaria. Big meeting today. You ready for Gregory's show?" Sevens. I looked up at her. "Always," I said. And it was true. She nodded and walked off, not noticing that my pulse didn't even shift. I could hear the hum of printers, the sigh of air vents, the faint tapping of pens. The soundscape of corporate life, predictable, mechanical, safe. All of it was about to fracture. I leaned back, eyes half closed, visualizing the sequence. Gregory steps up. He clicks through his slides. He hits sync. Sevens. And the system tells the truth. The moment would last less than 5 seconds. But those 5 seconds would rewrite months, maybe years. I imagined their faces, the stillness before comprehension, the flicker of shock, the sudden turn toward me. I didn't crave their approval, only their clarity. The truth deserves witnesses. I could almost hear my grandmother's voice again, quiet and steady in memory. Sevens. If they take your voice, baby, make your silence louder. Sevens. That's what this was. Silence, engineered to roar. 3:31 p.m. Sevens. People were filing into the conference room, murmurs, laughter, the squeak of chairs, the soft glow of screens coming alive. I moved slowly, deliberately. Every gesture choreographed, smooth, invisible, ordinary. I carried my notebook, a pen, my calm. That's all I needed. Inside the glass room, reflections fractured across the walls, faces, lights, the shimmer of monitors. The air smelled faintly of sanitizer and nerves. Gregory was already there, setting up. He looked too confident. That was the thing about arrogance. It blinds you to silence. He looked up as I entered. Ah, Zaria. Perfect timing, he said, voice too bright. We're about to make history today. Sevens. I smiled, stepping into the light that poured across the table. We already did, I said softly. He laughed, not understanding. He wouldn't. Not yet. I sat near the corner, close enough to watch, far enough to observe. The laptop fan hummed quietly beside me, like a whisper counting down. I glanced at my watch again. 3:46. Every detail sharpened. The reflection of Gregory's face on the glass wall, the slight tremor in a pen someone was tapping, the faint scuff of a shoe under the table. Even the air felt suspended, waiting. My breath steadied. My heartbeat aligned with the seconds. This was the still point before the world tilts. I whispered to myself, so quietly no one could hear. Sevens. Truth. Don't fail me now. Sevens. And then I smiled. Not from triumph. From inevitability. Because everything, every late night, every stolen line, every silence I swallowed, had led to this one, exquisite pause. 3:47 p. Sevens. Gregory cleared his throat, clicked the first slide. The lights dimmed slightly. All eyes turned forward. He smiled, full of certainty. And I exhaled. Slow, patient, complete. The moment had arrived. The truth was ready to speak. And I was ready to listen. The conference room was colder than usual that morning. Not from the air conditioning, but from what was about to happen. You could feel it. That quiet, humming kind of tension that creeps under your skin before a storm breaks. Sunlight sliced through the blinds in sharp, silver lines. It fell across the table, striping the polished wood like bars on a cell. The hum of laptops, the faint clink of coffee mugs, the shuffle of papers. Everything sounded too clear, too alive. I sat at the far end of the table. The last seat. The quiet one. That's where they liked me. Smart enough to fix things, invisible enough not to be remembered. Gregory stood near the projector, sleeves rolled up, voice steady but a little too bright. He was selling my work. Again. Every word he spoke had the rhythm of something rehearsed, the cadence of confidence built on stolen ground. He said, "Sevens, this system learns to evaluate bias-free, purely on performance metrics." Sevens. I tilted my head slightly, watching his reflection on the glass wall. He didn't meet my eyes. That's how guilt moves, not in words, but in where the gaze won't go. Someone chuckled. Another nodded. The CEO leaned forward, impressed. The HR director whispered something about game-changing innovation. I let the moment breathe. Let the applause form, just long enough for it to matter when it stopped. Then, quietly, I reached for my laptop. Click. The screen came alive with a glow that washed over my hands. I opened the file I'd hidden in plain sight. It wasn't sabotage. It was truth insurance. A simple dashboard. Data trails. Timestamps. Line-by-line authorship metadata. Each record tagged. Each entry immutable. They thought they'd deleted my name. But in the heart of every algorithm, in every line of logic, my signature lived like breath in glass. I spoke softly, just loud enough to cut through the room's hum. Sevens, can we pull up the system's build history? Sevens. Gregory froze. The CEO turned, surprised. He stammered. Zaria, we already reviewed. Sevens. No, I interrupted gently. You reviewed the final. I'm asking for the foundation. Sevens. My voice was calm. Maybe too calm. That's what power sounds like when you've been quiet too long. The IT manager tapped the keyboard, connected to the main display. The projector flickered. And there it was. Line after line of digital truth. First came the logs. Then, my author, tags. Then, the commit history. Each timestamp, each test result, all tied to my account. And then, the edits. The moment my name disappeared. The version control records. The deletion request, approved by Gregory Shaw. The silence that followed was heavier than sound. You could hear a pen drop. Literally. Someone did. Gregory's face drained. His jaw tensed. His breath caught halfway to an excuse. His hand, still gripping the laser pointer, trembled. The CEO leaned back, slowly. Her eyes moved from him to me, to the screen, then back again. Gregory, she said quietly, what is this? Sevens. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Just a dry click, like a key that doesn't fit anymore. I looked at him, not angry, not triumphant, just steady. Because this wasn't about him. It was about something bigger. You said you wanted bias-free, I said softly, but you erased the data that made us seen. Sevens. A murmur rippled through the room. HR blinked, confused. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Sevens. I leaned back in my chair. Let the quiet do the talking. Every pair of eyes that used to glance past me now couldn't look away. The silence had turned into spotlight. Inside, my heart wasn't racing. It was steady. The calm that comes when you stop running from truth. All the nights rewriting code, all the invisible labor, all the swallowed rage, they had weight now. And that weight was visible, undeniable. Gregory finally spoke, his voice breaking on the edges. Sevens. Zaria, maybe we can... Sevens. No, I said gently. You already did. Sevens. The CEO straightened, her tone shifting. Cool, precise, decisive. Sevens. We'll need to review this immediately. Dr. Ellis, please stay after the meeting. Sevens. Her gaze softened slightly when it met mine. Not pity. Respect. The kind that comes late, but still lands like justice. I gathered my notes. Closed the laptop. The light from the blinds hit the metal edge, catching a glint that looked almost golden. As I stood, I whispered, not to them, but to myself. Sevens. They used my code to erase us. Now the code remembers. Sevens. And then I walked out. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Each step a quiet verdict, echoing through the glass corridor. Behind me, voices rose, confusion, defense, realization. But I didn't turn. Some truths don't need witnesses. They just need daylight. If you've ever been overlooked or underpaid, this part's for you. And if you feel that, hit that. Sevens. It's strange how silence can change shape. Before, it was heavy, a silence that pressed on my chest, kept me small, taught me how to hold my breath. Now, it's lighter. The same walls, the same hum of fluorescent lights, but the quiet carries respect now. Recognition. Weeks have passed since that meeting, but every step through this building feels different. The carpet still muffles footsteps, the glass still gleams like nothing ever happened, and yet, every reflection feels like it's watching. People notice me now. Not the kind of noticing that burns, or questions, or doubts. It's quieter. The kind that says, "We saw what you did." Sevens. Some nod when we cross paths. Others smile, awkward. The kind of smile that knows it came too late. The office smells faintly of roasted coffee and toner ink. Someone's phone vibrates against a desk, a tiny sound that echoes like a heartbeat. The air conditioner hums its steady rhythm above us. Same office, same world. But I am no longer the same woman who built her dreams in the shadows. Gregory's office door has been empty for 2 weeks now. No goodbye email. No after-work drinks to celebrate new beginnings. Just silence, the kind that comes when a lie runs out of room to breathe. I didn't celebrate when he left. There's no victory in exposure, only clarity. Truth doesn't gloat. It just is. The company didn't say much. They never do. But I saw the shifts. Sevens. Mandatory ethics workshops. Bias review panels. A quiet apology folded into new policy. They never said my name in those meetings, but they didn't have to. The walls remembered. One morning, the CEO stopped me in the hall. No cameras, no witnesses, just her, me, and the soft buzz of fluorescent light above us. She said, "Sevens, you changed how we see things here." Sevens. Her tone was neutral, but her eyes, they had that flicker of understanding. The kind people only find after they've been forced to look in a mirror. I nodded. Nothing more. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is be silent with grace. Later that week, I found an article online. Sevens, Dr. Zaria Ellis. The algorithm that fought back. Sevens. I read it once, then closed it. Not because it hurt, but because I didn't need the world to tell me who I was anymore. Still, messages began to pour in. A girl from Atlanta wrote, "Sevens, I'm learning to code." I thought I'd never belong in tech until I read your story. Sevens. A man from Detroit said, Sevens. We've been invisible in these systems too long. Thank you for making them see. Sevens. And another, this one quiet, anonymous. Sevens. I didn't have your courage, but I will next time. Sevens. Each message felt like a pulse, like my heart beating outside my body, in the hands of people I'd never met. That's legacy. Not a headline, a heartbeat that multiplies. At work, I still stay late sometimes. Old habits die gently. The city outside blurs into gold and violet streaks against the glass. The lights of downtown shimmer like data points, each one a story being told somewhere else. I like the quiet hum of the servers, the faint reflection of my face against the code that started it all. I whisper to myself, sometimes, Sevens, they tried to erase us, but we write back. Sevens. I think about every woman I've met who had to measure her brilliance in whispers. Every one of us who learned to smile through credit stolen, ideas dismissed, doors half open. We carry so much grace, it's a wonder the world doesn't drown in it. And I think about the ones coming next. Sevens. The interns with curls tied up and notebooks full of code. The ones who will walk into rooms like this, not to earn a seat, but to own it. Maybe they'll see my name on a citation. Maybe they won't. But somewhere in the system, my fingerprint will guide them. A piece of logic, a phrase in a data set, a hidden note in the documentation that says, Sevens. Fairness begins here. Sevens. Legacy isn't about applause. It's about continuity. The quiet handoff between those who endured and those who'll build freer. For me, it's never been about revenge. It was always about recognition, not of me, but of truth. Truth that when we build with integrity, even if no one's watching, Sevens, it lasts. It roots itself in the code of things. It hums beneath systems, behind glass, through whispers. I don't hate Gregory. I don't need to. He became a cautionary tale. I became a memory of resistance that doesn't need to shout. Sometimes, late at night, I step outside the building before heading home. The parking lot lights cast long silver shadows across the pavement. The air smells like rain, metallic and clean. I tilt my face up and whisper, Sevens. We're still here. Sevens. And I swear the wind carries it somewhere. Back to those who came before. Forward to those yet to come. Because every act of integrity leaves a trace. Sevens. A pattern. A rhythm. A story that refuses to be deleted. We don't fight for credit. We fight for presence. For being counted, being seen, being remembered. Sevens, not just in systems, but in stories. And that, right there, Sevens, is how we win. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this story. If it spoke to you, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more stories that heal, inspire, and remind us who we are.